Bryce Young was benched after week 2, and then in week 3, Andy Dalton came in and made the Panthers look like a legit team. Dalton would have a solid game in week 4, but the Panthers came up short against the Bengals. And the week 3 win was only against the Raiders, but it was still a win nonetheless. And is Bryce Young a bust though? And is his time done in Carolina? To start off, I'm not sure he's a bust yet. In his first 18 games, he had 3,122 yards, 11 TDs, and 13 picks. These numbers aren't really awful, but there's nothing good either. His completion percentage is also sitting just under 60, and he's only won 2 games. But it's just his first 18 games. Bradshaw put up a little over 2,300 yards in his first 18, and that goes with 32 interceptions. His passer rating was even worse than Young's 44.1 with a 38. Manning threw 32 interceptions on 638 attempts, and Bradshaw, once again, same amount of picks but on half the attempts. Young's 13 interceptions doesn't compare to those, and he had 583 passes. But obviously, stats aren't the whole story. But it is something to take into account, is statistically, young quarterbacks aren't the best. And why is he a bust though? Well, the stats are very mediocre, his record is awful, and there's been a major lack of any sort of flashes. Why would I say he's not a bust though? He was thrown into an awful Panthers team in his first year. This year, I'd say the Panthers are improved, and that's not recency, just talking about the Raiders win. But he didn't really take a step forward. I really hope he isn't moved back to the QB1 job, though, until at least week 10, just so he can watch and truly understand the game. I'd say that he needs time to sit. He has some tools, but honestly, I don't think he ever should have been the first overall pick. I thought it was Stroud 1, Young 2, and even Frank Reich, the Panthers head coach when they drafted Young, thought so. Ownership decided to go against the coach, and they took Young instead. He should have never been the first overall pick. But he was, so how does he climb his way out of this hole that he's now in? The first thing is that he can just show maturity. He's already done this some though, congratulating Dalton's win and not completely shutting off, and still being supportive of his team. I would say the next thing is that he needs to learn from his mistakes. He needs to understand how to move in the pocket better. He needs to learn his reads. And hopefully the coaches are still willing to work with him in this. And I really have a feeling they are. Especially when Dave Canales said that he's still their guy. And although he'd bench him, I think that he can still be the guy even if benched. And now the last thing, it's not quite on Young, but please get David Tepper out of the Panthers organization.